It's a funny thing, I can no longer really go to bed with this stuff in my mind. A lot of times when I've done something or said something, it's because I have a resentment against a person. And I have to examine why I have that resentment. Why am I responding to this person like this? And a lot of times, true, it's because I'm a bit fearful. You know, I am still amazed at alcoholics of our type who would do battle drinking if anybody even looked at us wrong. How fearful we can be in certain situations. How sometimes we are actually, I am actually afraid to speak up about what I know is right for me. We can get into fear, and when I get into fear, I get into resentment. The other thing that can cause me to have to make an amends is this. I can have an expectation that someone will react to something I've done in the appropriate manner. And expectations breed resentments every time. How many people in here are happy when you give a gift with not getting a thank you? 2. I was brought up that you had to write thank you notes. But that's not what our fellowship teaches. No, because we know and we always do the right thing, we want the whole world to do it. But the whole world doesn't have to do it. And here's the other thing, the whole world doesn't suffer like me if they don't do the right thing on a daily basis. If I do not do this step on a daily basis, you see, I have a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. The maintenance of my spiritual condition, which this is, step 10. Now what that means is every morning I wake up with the illness of alcoholism. I don't want to go to bed in the same state. I don't want to live from morning till evening in that state. In that restlessness, my natural state, they tell me, is restless, irritable, and discontent. And if I'm not in fit spiritual condition, I'll feel like that. Now, I may try and elevate myself out of that step, that way of thinking during the day by having a few jokes, by going to lunch, by having a lighthearted, but it doesn't go deep. Because all the time there's something deep inside of me that's just running around and saying, hey, you got to fix that. You can't ignore it anymore. And that is what I feel is being God conscious. That is the God consciousness, the God watchguard of my spiritual condition that will click in by a continually working these steps. It comes of its own volition. It doesn't have to be summoned. So I have a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. Here's what happens to me when I am not in fit spiritual condition. I will go into a meeting one evening and say hi to somebody who does not give me the appropriate response according to my dictates and expectations. They do not welcome me effusively. Now, lots of other people will, but it is no matter to me. I am concentrating on that one person that seemed cold. I will sit through the meeting hearing nothing, thinking about this. Now, this doesn't happen often to me, but it happens if I'm not in fit spiritual condition. Then I will go home, and I will lie and think about it in bed. And eventually, when I wake up in the morning, it's going to be sitting at the end of my bed saying, hello, wake up. Remember John didn't greet you properly last night. Do you remember his look in his eyes? And I wake up with it. Now I've wasted a whole evening A whole night and a whole morning. Call my sponsor. Why is this person having this effect? Well, Mary, because your pride was hurt, your vanity, you want everybody to love you the way, according to your dictates of how you want them to love you. Why don't you examine yourself and then make amends to this guy? I said, make amends? He doesn't even know I did anything wrong. She said, how do you know? You may have looked at him wrong. Now, prior to speaking to my sponsor, I'd made up my mind I was going to go to the meeting he went to tonight and go up and say to him again, hi, and see how he responded. So anyway, I seek him out, and I do the clarification that Clancy taught me so well. And because you see, I have to check for my own psychosis. I have to check that I'm not projecting, not imagining. And like we've all had the circumstance, like Bob even shared himself. I go to this guy, he's from Montreal, James, a member of our group, and I said to him, last night I spoke to you, but you seem to be really distracted. He said, my mother died in Montreal, and I'm going to have to go for the funeral, and it was nothing to do with me. But you see, this is a me illness. This is an illness of meism. Me-ism. And I can get back into me at the exclusion of all else if I don't keep doing this thing. Every day, I ask for knowledge of God's will for me and the strength to carry that out. And that gives me a great direction for the day. Because that means that sometimes what will come into my life, even if it looks like it's an upsetting thing, is God's will for me. Have you ever seen somebody and they've been given your phone number and you just feel you don't want to deal with somebody one more time? And sometimes you say, I'm tired, I've got all these sponsees, why are they still giving out my number? Anybody ever felt like that? I'm overloaded here. Yeah? But then I stop. And I say, wait a minute. I ask for knowledge of God's will for me and the strength to carry that out. 10 step. And I start talking to the person. And I immediately don't feel tired anymore. I don't feel overwhelmed. I don't feel like too much has been taken out of me. Every time you're doing, this is such a simple program for such complex people. And these maintenance steps are amazing steps. These maintenance steps, this prevents me from being cocky. I know that nobody in here ever feels a wee bit cocky, But every now and then, I can get on my high horse one more time. And I can have various altercations with dentists. That was not good, but I'm not going to talk about it. All I will tell you is I am barred from a dentist's office last year. At my stage of sobriety. Well, there was no God consciousness in that office, let me tell you. It wasn't my fault. So we're told in this step that we can exercise our willpower all along the way, that this is the correct use of the will. And this is when I am aligning my will to God. I am aligning my will to God because it's almost as if God has said to me, Mary, your way is no good. Your way is causing pain and suffering for not only you but for others. So align yourself with me. And, by the time you've done the first 9 steps, you will truly realize that God is doing for you what you could not do for yourself. I cannot, last night when I was at that wonderful group, What's it called? Yeah. What was his name? I loved him. Yeah, when I was at the Fifth Tradition group, you know, I saw the steps in action. I saw a group, a wonderful group, that have combined the two things that Bob and I have spoken about. They've combined the working of the 12 steps and the reading of the big book and concentrating on these things, as well as the camaraderie and the fellowship and the sponsorship of the group. Some people, it's very possible for them to go off into 12-step studies and to become so intellectual and just dealing with the theory of it all because they want to quote the steps and quote the big book and batter people over the head with this about what's right. But they very rarely go on a 12-step call. They very rarely are active in their groups. But at that Fifth Tradition, I saw the beautiful combination of both, which we have in my group, and which I know they have in Bob's group. You know, and it was a wonderful thing to see because it wasn't just there was a wonderful mix in that group of ages, and a lot of young people, and people newly getting sober, and an enthusiasm, you know, and an interest I saw coming from the old-timers in the group, obviously spending time with these people and getting everybody involved. Now, you cannot achieve stuff like that if you haven't kept in fit spiritual condition. You know, I don't know if you do it here, but you can also take a group inventory, you know. And sometimes something goes wrong in the group and you need to take a group inventory, a quick business meeting that night, just to see what was going on in here. I mean, I've known groups have had fist fights in the group. No, it was very possible that the two people who indulged in this were not practicing the 10-step. You know, and this permeates. You know, we have become God conscious and we've developed the sixth sense. And the sixth sense is the thing that I get and kicks in that stops me from behaving the way I used to behave. And, you know, I'll finish with saying one more time, I cannot stress enough how these 12 steps have enabled me to live in a world that was always hostile and alien, to enjoy being with people. I must admit that even today I am happier and more at ease in a group of alcoholics, that excluding my own family, of course. My entire life, for me, is AA. There's nothing I do that is not AA affiliated, because that is what I love. That is where all my contacts, that is where my life has come from. But I am still able to negotiate airports, have flight delays. You know, I'm able to do all these things with grace as long as I keep in fit spiritual condition. And, you know, the promises are right there in this if you read them. You know, when it starts down at the bottom of 84, your promises start with, and we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. And you can just read right on it, the whole of that. Those are all the promises that we get by the time we are in a fit spiritual condition after the 9th step to open ourselves up to God's consciousness. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks. We're going to take a short break, about 9 minutes, and then this is the last chance to put a question in the basket and play Stump the Speakers. There's only a couple questions, and some of them are... You see, I knew that. John Shire writes, how can you sit up there in that boom, boom shirt I knew that was you right away. Here, you want to take one? This is going to be quick. There's only a couple of them here.
This one is your experience with writing as a sober tool to freedom and healthy emotions. Doesn't work. You know, some people journal into nauseous conditions. Freedom and healthy emotions comes from action, not from writing. I mean, the writing we do is the writing that we do in the 4th, and then making some of the amends list in the 8th. But writing will not help you. And the other thing I have found with my sponsees who journal a lot is they get obsessed with journaling rather than going out and helping somebody. And what can happen is, and I'm not saying this is the instance of this, but what can happen is that this obsessive journaling can lead a person back into being self-obsessed. Well, one more time, they're just concentrating on themselves and their emotions. They're examining every emotion. And any hurt that's been healed, they want to peel it off and write about it. So I really don't encourage writing as a tool, just for me.
My experience is very similar. And it's odd because I came from a therapeutic background and a lot of treatment centers. And in the early 80s, we had another wave. We had a wave of it in the 70s. We had another wave of it in the 80s. And people were talking about sitting in for 20 minutes every night and journaling about their feelings. And I went to my sponsor and I said, you know, do you think I should do that? And he said, you're self-obsessed enough. And what I think we do in AA is we look but we don't stare. We watch for the resurgence of self. I'll tell you a funny little story. I was at a treatment center, and this woman who was a counselor said to me, she said, your problem is that you're not in touch and you don't feel you're not in touch with your feelings. And I didn't say anything, but I thought, if I was any more in touch with my feelings, I would kill myself. The problem is I can't get free from my feelings. They're just, I can't explain them because they're a whirlwind of feelings, but they were overwhelming me because I kept staring at them. And so we watch, but we don't stare. All right, here's another question. In the beginning, selfishness and trouble look like fun. What does fun look like? I know something that's really God's idea of Bob's more fun than Bob's idea of Bob, and it's amazing what you get to experience in your life if you don't try to control it. And you're not a self-gratifying seeker and a self-seeker. Because if you're obsessed with having fun and feeling good, you're a self-seeker. And when you're not a self-seeker and you live to just whatever God, you just sort of with a position of whatever God, I know it'll be good. I don't know what it'll be, but it'll be good. It's amazing what will come into your life if you're trying to be of service and you take that position. All kinds of remarkable things. That's one of the promises in the 12th step. It says, if you and the new man walk day by day in the path of spiritual progress, and if you persist, all sorts of remarkable things will follow. We don't plan, don't plan your life. Let God plan it. My life's remarkable today as a result of me not planning it. I laugh more than I ever imagined a human being was capable of laughing. There's a joy. I feel more feelings. Sometimes they're difficult because I care about people. They're important to me. And let God lead. You're up. Or
You know,
you
Bob
can
was
talk about
saying
that one if you want.
yesterday, trouble always starts out looking like fun. You know, and that is absolutely how it used to be. But that, I mean, haven't we had fun this weekend? This is fun.
Yeah.
I have fun today, and it's a deep. Sometimes I have such a deep joy. I have such a deep joy in just looking at my grandchildren and playing with my grandchildren. I have a deep joy in looking at my sponsees, getting them down. The appearance of my fun, the content of my fun has changed. My fun, but then I never had much fun. I just wasn't a funny kind of gal, you know, and what other people perceived as fun usually led me into trouble. So the face of fun has changed since I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous. My ability to let fun in has become deeper because I am more open now to things that are joyous to the spirit. And you know, I don't think there's any group of people get together and laugh as much as we do in AA. We hear the weirdest, funniest things from the podium, you know. So let me read this one. It is really clear who the people and institutions are that go on my inventory, but what about the principles? Can you give me an example of one of these principles? Well, people, institutions, principles. The principles that I broke were the sins. I was expected, because I was born Catholic, to live according to certain principles. And these certain principles were tied in with the commandments. And I was expected to adhere to these. And I was told about them and made aware of them from a very early age. So the principles that I have broken are what Bill Wilson said, in other words, my sins. Those for me are the principles. You know, and we talk in here about principles before personalities a lot. And that's trying to keep some of my defects of character away and putting the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous. The principles of how to live in society. You know, I think the world wouldn't understand that really alcoholics needed to be sat down and told about the principles of living in a sane society, because we didn't have a natural ability. I never had a natural ability to live by principle. When you live by principle, you're living according to law. I did not live according to law. I was lawless. So I didn't have any principles. I developed principles when I came in here. That's what I have there. Bob?
I thought 55 mile an hour speed limit was a really good law, except I'm in a hurry. And I don't think it was fair that I got the ticket because I was in a hurry. Alcoholics, we like principles. We just think they're for other people. Right. I think handicap parking is really essential. There's people that are handicapped. They got to get up. They got to be close. They have wheelchairs and crutches, all kinds of stuff. My God, they got to be close. But I'm only going to be a minute. I mean, so I just have this itch. I'm sad to tell you, I was sober a lot of years here before I learned how to play, because I was too uptight. I was too unsurrendered for a long time here. I remember the first vacation I ever took was with a woman who was eventually my first wife before we were married. We were going to drive to San Francisco. So it was her idea to drive up the Coast Highway, which is a very narrow, windy highway through Big Sur. And I'm driving through there at like 60 miles an hour to get to the destination, right? And I'm missing all this beautiful, amazing stuff because I'm on a mission. And you could feel the willfulness in the car, right? You could feel it because I didn't know how to relax and play. I think for a guy like me to be comfortable enough and free enough to be spontaneous and in the moment, it requires a certain level of spiritual growth that for years was really beyond me. Not because I'm a bad guy, I just hadn't got to that point yet where I could start to really take life lightly. You have to take yourself, in order to enjoy life, you have to enjoy yourself. In order to enjoy yourself, you can't take yourself seriously. The license plate on my car is Rule 62. And if you don't know what Rule 62 is, it comes from this fourth tradition, and it says, don't take yourself too damn seriously. It's hard to play when things are serious. You want to see a fist fight break out? Get 4 newcomers to play the game of Risk. It's a game where you conquer the world, right? Oh, it's a great game for alcoholics. Yeah, be a fist fight before the end of the game. After years of sobriety, how do you continue to grow spiritually? Well, that leads us that's the last question, I think. Or is this one too? No, it's the last question. And that leads us right up to, do you have another question?
No.
That leads us right up to where we left off, step 11. This is really, it's 11 and 12, and 11 facilitates 12. And 12 really is the ultimate arena by which God will have his way with me. But I can't do it very effectively without 11. I have some innate problems that I don't know I have. And one of them is I have so much information that's not necessarily true that it's hard for me to learn anything new. I am an opinionated guy when I get sober, and what's dangerous is I don't know that I am. So I start thinking about step 11, and it's something I kind of want to do because I had experience with meditation. Was a kid growing up. There was a time when I was like 20 years old, 18 to about 21, where meditation and yoga and all that stuff was very hip and very cool. And we used to do TM, and we do the breathing exercises. I went to the Divine Light Mission, and I went to all kinds of stuff, doing yoga and meditation. I had several mantras. I went with the Buddhists and chanted in Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, all that stuff. Not because I wanted to grow closer to God, and not because I wanted to be more useful and more connected to you. I did it for spiritual self-grandizement, because to elevate me above the herd. I remember this, it's like it was yesterday, being someplace, and I was really into going to these workshops on meditation, all this stuff, and saying things to people like, so, do you meditate? And they'd say, no, I don't. Oh. Right. Like up here. And the ego, that's all it wants is up here. It doesn't want to be here with you. It wants to be up here. And so the idea of meditation when I was doing sobriety was appealing to me. I wanted to hone myself to such a state of spiritual perfection. I glowed in the dark, and people walked around and said, I touched the hem of his garment, that kind of thing. So I go to the book to see what AA is saying about meditation, and nothing it says in here agrees with what I know it should say. Right? Nothing. Matter of fact, when it comes right down to it, it says we're gonna give you some definite and valuable suggestions about step 11, about prayer and meditation, and it immediately goes into inventory. When we retire at night, we constructively review our day. We're resentful. I'm reading this going, but it's a misprint. That should have been on the other page. That's not step 11. That's step 10. I'm going on further down the page. I don't see any. There's no mantras. There's no breathing exercises. There's nothing to focus on. There's no exercises. There's nothing that looks like meditation. I did find a couple prayers. I'll give it that. There was, we ask God to direct our thinking. We ask to be divorced from self-pity, dishonest self-seeking. We ask especially for freedom from self-will. We ask for inspiration. Okay, there's a few prayers, but there's no meditation here. So, I do what smart guys do. Smart guys don't follow any direction that's not their idea, right? That's what ego-driven people do. And so what I did, I'm not going to give up on meditation. I started doing all kinds of stuff. I had 3 little books I'd read every morning, day by day, 24-hour day book, and one day at a time. And they have little meditation things in there. I'd do that. I found pretty early on, I found the prayer of St. Francis in the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, step 11, amazing prayer. I did that for a while. Then I found a different version that used, instead of Lord, make me a channel, it said, Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. And I for some reason, like that better. I use that one to this day sometimes. I went to the Course in Miracles. Nothing wrong with that, fine. I did that for almost a year with a bunch of people in AA. The only reason I stopped doing it is about half of them got drunk again because they had stopped doing AA, right? I found this little meditation I use to this day. I am the place where God shines through. Him and I are one, not two. I need not worry, fret, or plan. He wants me where and as I am. And if I could be relaxed and free, he'll carry out his plan through me. I use that somewhat to this day. I started exploring churches, went back to the church of my childhood. I was amazed how they had changed. I was amazed how they changed. And I probably would have gone there to this day if they let me share once in a while. If you identify with that, you're an egomaniac also. I explored a lot of other churches. I went back to Buddhism. I went back to SGI and started chanting Nam Myo Renge Kyo and the whole litany of other chants that they did. I did a lot of things, and it's all good. It's all good. Matter of fact, the big book says it's good. It says, be quick. Bottom of page 87. Be quick to see where religious or spiritual people are right. Make use of what they have to offer in addition to. My problem is I'm doing it in substitution for, because I'm not following AA. And I'm supposed to be in a program of recovery called Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm not following their directions. And I don't know that I'm not following their directions because I don't understand the directions. And then I was sober probably 20 years. And I had a guy come up to me, and I was doing the breathing, and I'm doing all this stuff. And he comes up to me, and he's very serious, and he's sober double digits. And he said to me very seriously, he says, I need some specific direction on what to do in meditation in the morning. He says, I don't know what to do. Well, the problem is I don't really know what to tell him. I've done so many things, and I don't have anything that's really a home run, even though it's all kind of good. I don't have anything that's definitive. So I said to him, I told him what they tell you in secret sponsor school. And in secret sponsor school, they tell you if a sponsor asks you a question, you have no answer at all. You have no idea. You either give them one of two answers. A, you say, well, just pray about it. If your sponsor ever says, just pray about it, what he's really saying is, I don't have a clue. I have no idea. Or answer number B is you say, oh, just do what it says in the book. Well, that's what I said there. I said, just do what it says in the book. Well, this guy doesn't have the prejudices and preconceived notions and opinions I do. And he turns to the big book and he starts at night when I retire at night, constructively reviewing the day, answering the questions, on awakening. He thinks about the 24 hours ahead, considers his plans for the day, invites God in to divorce his thinking from selfishness, or self-pity, dishonest, self-seeking motives, freedom from, he starts literally without prejudice, following the directions in the book. And in no time at all, he seemed to be doing better than I was. And I don't like that much, really. That really bugs the crap out of me. So I thought, well, maybe I should do that. And I started doing it. And I discovered that this isn't what I thought it was. This is not to hone me into some kind of superior spiritual states. What it's really designed is to make me more useful. It's designed to help me to better facilitate a corrupting decision that I made in step 3 that corrupts. It just corrupts. To bring me back into the game of trying to be the guy I said I wanted to be, and I decided I wanted to be in step 3. And it's designed to do that. And I found this little passage in step 11 in the 12 steps and 12 traditions where Bill explains why this first paragraph of self-examination is actually part of, it's not 10, it's actually part of step 11. He says in there, in this little paragraph, he says, self-examination, meditation, and prayer, when taken separately, can bring about much benefit and relief, and that's true. But I don't want relief. I'm a relief junkie. I don't want relief. I need something more important than relief. I need freedom. Freedom from what? From the bondage of self. And then he goes on to say, but when these things are logically related and interwoven, they can create an unshakable foundation for life. I want that. That's what I want. I want something that when the crap hits the fan and I'm afraid of losing everything, that I know I'm going to be protected and I'm safe and secure in the midst of a storm. I want to know in the pit of my stomach when life gets rocky that I got something that's got my back. And so I want to grow closer to God, not so much because I need to be closer to Him, I want to trust Him more, because there's a security in that. And so I started doing this stuff, and I discovered that it's exactly what happened. One of the promises in the 11th step in 12 by 12, it says it will be it's the beginning of the end of isolation between God and the people about us. And it's really designed for unity and effectiveness. And I discovered that I can be a better servant when I do this every day. When I and it's an amazing way to frame your day. At night, you look to see where you've been out of line. And then the last thing you do before you go to bed, you ask God, what corrective measures should be taken? And then the next thing you do is you go to sleep, because the next thing it says is on awakening. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of days. This one question throws me a lot. It says, was I kind and loving towards all? See, that's not a fair question. I'm kind and loving towards the people who deserve it. I'm kind and loving towards the people that are kind and loving towards me. But when all's not fair, because there's people out there that don't deserve kind and loving, for God's sakes. And that is evidentiary of me playing God again. That's my ego. It's the judgment. And what Alcoholics Anonymous is trying to hone me and push me towards a life of service without prejudice or opinion. Chuck Chamberlain used to say something, I tell you, it's just to make my head want to blow up when he'd say it. He'd say, we have to help God's kids do what they want to do because we want to help them. I thought, what they want to do? Well, what if what they want to do isn't right? No, he doesn't say. See, it's service, love and service without discernment. See, I'm pretty good at being kind and loving to someone who's doing things my way. But that doesn't take any. That's on a spiritual level. That's almost infantile. What's really harder is to be kind and loving to someone who's not doing it your way. And I'll tell you something, if I catch this, I've caught a few of these, and I've missed many, many more than I catch. Sometimes I'll go to a meeting, and there'll be someone in there that's sharing something that I think is stupid and ridiculous, and why is he even sharing? That doesn't even have anything to do with AA. That's just stupid. And I'll take that position, when in actuality, if I was awake enough to other-center myself, to put myself in his shoes, I would realize that if I was in an AA meeting and I was sharing what that guy shared, that I would need a friend, right? That I'm in trouble. And that's not something to be irritated over. It's something to be aware of. It's a call. The guy's calling for help here. But I don't see it because I'm irritated at what he says. He's not sharing my way. And so I'm not kind and loving. I'm not mean to him. I don't say anything at all to him. I just kind of avoid him. And then you go home that night and you say, was he kind and loving towards all? And I remember him. I remember him. I think God puts dozens and dozens of missed opportunities in our lives every single day. And I miss them because I'm too wrapped up in me. I've driven down the street and passed someone with a flat tire that was an older person that might not even have been able to change a tire. And I'm so wrapped up in getting where I want to go to do what I want to do that I don't even I just drive right by. When in actuality, that was an opportunity to be kind and loving. But I'm too selfish and I'm too self-centered to catch it. I catch a couple once in a while. They light you up, man. Well, the ones you catch will light you up. They will light you up. But I miss more than I catch because of my selfish and self-centered nature. I'd like to do better, but I do what I do. And we grow along spiritual lines, I suppose. I catch more today than I did 10 years ago. I catch more at the airport now. I catch more in the meetings today. I try to, it's hard, you know, I'm part of an ethic in AA that you go to meetings and you look, you hunt for the newer people, and then at the break, you go, when they raise their hand and you break, you go up to them and talk to them and try to make them feel welcome, give them your number. Do you have a sponsor? Oh, you don't have one? If you want one, I'd love to sponsor here, you know, that kind of thing. And you know what happens to me is I sponsor so many guys in my home group that I can't get to the new people. Because I'm on my way, and it's like, Bob, I need to, you know, and I don't get there. But you know what I'll do is I'll send guys. I say, okay, I'll talk to you. But hey, come here, you go talk to that. You know, I'll do that. I would hate to. It bothers me in my home group if new guys slip between the cracks, right? Because you know something? Some of us are not wired to reach out for help. Dr. Bob wasn't. Wilson sought him out. And so it is my job as a recovering alcoholic to try to be awake enough to catch the opportunities to fulfill my primary number one above myself purpose. I miss more than I catch, unfortunately. But I'm not alone. I think, I'll say this and I'll turn it over to Mark. I think that this is very much like what a sailor would use to navigate the ocean. If you were to go down here to the coast, and let's say you went to a port city, you went to Savannah maybe, or someplace like that, and you were to buy the best ocean-going boat you could, and then you were to go to the nautical library because you want to sail to the island of Bermuda. And you go to the nautical library and you do an impeccable job of charting a course from that port exactly dead on to the island of Bermuda. And you do the first 9 steps of navigation so that when you leave that port, you're dead on for Bermuda. Every single day, the tides and the winds and the current are going to move you off course. It's just the way it is. It's not because you have a bad boat or you played with your tiller too much or none of that stuff. It's just the way it is. And every day you have to take an honest reckoning at where you are and compare it to the goal, which is carrying out the decision in step 3, being God's kid, being his servant, so that you can mend your course and realign it back to the vision of God's will in your life. Why? So you head to Bermuda? No, so that the next day you're out of line again and you got to move it back. And that's how we sail to Bermuda. You go like this, you're off course and on course and off course and on course and off course, and eventually you end up in Bermuda. If you don't correct yourself and check yourself, what happens? Well, you start drifting. You don't know how far off course you are. You have no idea. I watch people in Alcoholics Anonymous that I've seen them that a week before they committed suicide, a week before they drank again. They have no idea how far they are. They have no idea. Because you think about it, if you were a week away from a level of anxiety and despair where you're going to take your own life, you'd do something about it, wouldn't you? But you don't know until it's got you. You don't know. You don't know how far off course you are. And they get off so far they can't get back. And the further off course, here's the problem. The further off course you are, the more egocentric you become, the more defended you become, and no one can help you. No one can tell you anything. You defend everything, every position. You'll bend your mind around it and to make you right. And then all of a sudden you're on your way to Bermuda. I'm on my way to Bermuda. And there's chunks of ice with penguins floating by the boat. And you think, well, that's a little odd, but I think they now have penguins in Bermuda. It's a new thing. Evidently, it's a new thing, and you will bend your mind around to convince yourself you're right. So I don't want to get that far off. So the self-examination at night to see how far off course I've been today. I don't do a very good job of that. I leak. The spot check inventory and the nightly examination are set up almost like what they do at skyscrapers in New York City. If you've ever been in New York City, you'll see them often doing repair work on the outside of a building, maybe at the 60th, 70th floor. Underneath where they're working, they set up some nets. And they do that because they know if a guy drops a hammer from the 70th floor, by the time it hits the street, it's a freaking missile. And then you'll notice something else. Around the first floor, they'll have a bunch of scaffolding set up with more nets because they know it's possible for it to get through the first net. So when we retire at night, we try to catch what got through the moment, because I didn't pause when I was agitated. I didn't stop. I didn't stop to deal with this thing and make things right and get back in line. I didn't stop. And then I tell you, then at night I'm tired sometimes and I don't do it either. And then it builds up and then I ain't right. And you know how you know you're not right? Because you think you're right, but you notice that everybody else is not. Right? You can measure how spiritually sick you are by how other people look. If you're sitting in a meeting or at work or in traffic or in the grocery store and you look around, everybody looks pretty good, you're probably all right. You look around, you see a lot of self-centered people somebody should straighten out. You are in a lot of trouble. So when I'm disturbed at all, no matter what the cause, something's wrong with me. One more thing. In Alcoholics Anonymous, we have something unique here. And I think it comes in the word only in step 11. That we pray only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry it out. There's a lot of prayers that aren't only. The serenity prayer does not correspond with the 11th step. I mean, I say it because we say it in AA because I want to go along with the herd, but I wouldn't say on my own. It's not one of the prayers I use. Because I'm giving God orders. I'm not trying to align my will with God's. I'm giving God direction. God, listen, take a knee. I want wisdom. I want serenity. I want acceptance. I'm giving him orders. Whereas the Lord's Prayer is, thy will be done. I was a kid in school, and the nuns used to, because I swore a lot. I was about second grade. I found the F word. I didn't even know what it meant, but I noticed it had power. It had power to make the nun's face turn red. I mean, it had power to upset my mother. It was like, I never knew. It was like abracadabra. It was a magic word, man. I'd get in trouble over it, but I had power. So I used it a lot. So the nuns used to tell me that if you swear, you're taking the name, you're breaking the second commandment. And the second commandment is, I shall not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. I don't know if swearing does that or not. I don't cuss in meetings. I try not to, because I've become other-centered enough and considered enough that I don't want to do anything that might offend someone. I wouldn't want to be that guy. But I don't think that's what it means. I think the vainest use of God's name would be to pray for my own will, is to give God direction. I mean, when you think about it, is there anything vainer than that? I just had, last year, I had a great, about a 15, 20-minute conversation with my sponsor about that. He says, and he's on the same page, blew my mind. He says, there's a lot of prayers in AA I don't think we should say. He said, but because they do not align themselves with the principle in step 11 of only. Only. And in the only is an acknowledgement of our position that we don't know. That God runs the universe. That I don't know. It is a surrendered position. And anything less than only is me trying to influence God. And I don't want to influence God. I just want to go with him. Wherever he wants to take me. It's been good so far. I started about 15 years ago changing my prayers for the most part to conversational prayers because I wanted a greater level of intimacy with God. And I thought to myself, how intimate can you be with someone if you just run through the room and yell a paragraph at them and then leave? I mean, because that's what rote prayers, they become robotic after a while. And I started conversational prayers with God, like you would with your very, very best friend. And I told him many years ago, I said, listen, God, I'm going to try to do your will and anything I think you want me to do and help your kids. But if you mess me up, I'm going to tell everybody. And God laughs. He has a good sense of humor. If you don't think he does, look around you. He made us. He made us. He's got a great sense of humor. My friend Scott Redmond said when he dies, he thinks God's going to ask him one question. The question is, hey, Scott, did you get the joke? Did you get the joke? Laurie.
The 11-step prayer is a wonderful prayer for me, and it's what keeps me in fit spiritual condition. And, I pray only for knowledge of God's will for me and the strength to carry that out. And I am amazed at the power of that prayer. Sometimes I feel really tired, I feel exhausted, and I pray only for knowledge of God's will for me and the strength to carry that out. And I get that it's like a divine strength. It's like a surge. You can feel it coming through you, and you're just not tired anymore. And, when I constructively review my day at night, because of the type of mind I have, there's some days I've been a good girl. And I haven't offended anyone. I haven't had anybody chase me. I haven't been barred from stores. I haven't had any altercations. I've been kind and loving towards all. I've been living in God consciousness. But because of the type of mind I have, I will go to bed and I will examine myself, and then I'll think, well, there has to be something there. And I'll start looking for something that's not even there. I'll begin to try and imagine a conversation and say, maybe that needs more examination there. Trying to find something, because here's what I don't want. And I spoke about it in my last talk. I don't want to wake up in the morning with a pile of garbage sitting waiting for me. But the other thing is that since I'm trying to live in God's consciousness, I just don't want anything that's going to stop my soul from growing, because I have to grow all the time. I cannot remain still. I want to spiritually grow all the time and get new levels of consciousness. And pray, I have been in a position where I have prayed for knowledge of God's will for me and the strength to carry that out. And I have been in situations where I have felt that in other people in the room, that we're all aligning ourselves to God's will. And it is a very special feeling. And it has a lot of power. It has a lot of power. It's, I felt a few years ago, I was at a conference with Clancy and Johnny H. And Clancy had been talking about this praying only for knowledge of God's will for me and the strength to carry that out. And I felt as if I had reached a new dimension of existence, a new knowledge of what God wanted for me. And I was absolutely elated into a sixth dimension of spiritual condition and spirituality. And I decided then that I had received this new God consciousness, and my feet were not even touching the ground when I left there. And I get in the airport, and I say to myself, I'm going to practice this kind and loving towards all. And I'm smiling at everybody in the airport. Hello. And they must have thought I was nuts. Now, some people responded, but they had the same eyes as me. Must have been alcoholics. Hi. Other people kind of looked at me askance, and I was just in a new dimension. And I knew I'd never be the same again. And I got on the plane, and there was a lot of turbulence. And I said to the woman next to me, there's a lot of turbulence on this plane. She said, no, you're safer on this plane than you are driving. I said, not me, I'm not. When I'm driving, I'm in control. My spiritual new state began to diminish because it was a very rocky flight. And eventually I thought I should go in and check up on the pilot. This new God consciousness has come down a level, and by the time the plane hits Toronto and lands, then I am no longer in that new state, praying only for knowledge, because now it's me. I know it's me, and I have to get myself home safely. Now, at that time, I was living 2.5 hours outside the city. The plane landed at midnight. It was a very foggy night, and I'm driving to the country. There is nothing left of God or spirit within me. And it took me a long, long time to get home because I couldn't see properly. And so when I get in, instead I realize that I'm tired and that I should look out for hungry, angry, lonely, tired, and just go straight into my house, I decide I'm going to check the mail. Now, I was living in an enclosed place where we had mailboxes, lots of mailboxes. I'm dead tired. I've no spiritual condition. I've none of God's energy within me. And I drive up, and I feel something hit my car. I think it must be a deer, and I go to brake, and I hit the gas pedal. And I go right into all the mailboxes. And they all crash down on top of me. Every mailbox. The sound at 3 a.m. was horrendous. Now, I did not think of the right spiritual thing to do, which was stay there till somebody came. My first thought was, if you get out of here real quick, they won't know it's you. So I drive to my little house, and I have a garage. I can get up and I get inside and go, whoo! That was a bit hairy, but here you are. You're okay. And then I look at my car, and there's nothing left of it on the front. And then God consciousness kicks in and says, Mary, you've probably woken up the entire gated community. You have to go back. And I called a dear member, the most wonderful foot soldier in AA, Dave C., an Irish guy who lived near me. He died with eye cancer recently, and he's a great loss. But anyway, I called Dave. He said, Mary, I'll walk over with you. So he got out of bed and came down with me and walked me over to where all these mailboxes were lying and parts of my car. And all the neighbours had woken up. And they're all in their house coats, standing looking at this complete and utter wreckage. And as Dave and I are approaching, I hear one of them say, it must have been a drunk. Must have been a drunk. I said, it was me. No, I wanted to explain to them I had just come from a conference and I was no longer a drunk. But what I realized is I had engaged in drunken behavior one more time. That the God consciousness that I acquire that keeps me doing the right thing, because it's all about doing the next right thing. That is what God consciousness is. That I had not, you know why that drive was not good? Because I was no longer praying for knowledge of God's will for me. If I had asked for knowledge of God's will for me and the strength to carry that out, I would have been more alert on that. I'd have been praying my way there. You know, prayer is something that came very, very difficult for me in the beginning. I loved the 3rd-step prayer, I loved the 7th-step prayer, and I loved the 11th-step prayer. And I always use the Catholic version, God, make me an instrument of thy peace. But here's the thing. When I used to sit down and try and meditate, I was not able to meditate because I have a monkey brain. In the early days, I had a monkey brain. I would see horrendous things meditating. I didn't even want to go there. They were not spiritual things. So what I used to do was, because I love poetry, and because I used to feel sad about the fact that I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do. There was an old poet, he used to be around the same time as Freud, a European poet. And he had written this wonderful thing. And it said, you must not be frightened if a sadness rises up before you larger than anything you have ever seen. If a restiveness like light and cloud shadows passes over and clouds everything you do. You must think that something wonderful is happening to you, that life has not forgotten you. It will not let you down. That life holds you in the palm of its hands. And I inserted God into that. That God was saying to me, you must not be frightened if you cannot do this properly. You must not let a sadness overcome anything, because I am there with you. And it developed on from that into my own form of meditation and prayer. And I have found that I cannot go out in the morning without doing that, because if I do, that's when I start fighting over boxes of tissues. That is when I'm into myself again and behaving like a child. And that is what happens to me when I am not in fit spiritual condition. One more time, my emotional immaturity kicks in. You know, Bill Wilson wrote that wonderful thing about emotional maturity, and I have had to read that time after time after time. Because he spoke about old-timers in the rooms not behaving well. And I don't know if you've ever tried to bring it to an old-timer's attention that he's not behaving well, but I have. And it did not come out well. It did not come out well, because some of the old-timers that I tried to bring that to attention to, they haven't really implemented a lot of these stuff that we do today. A lot of the old-timers, all they care about is how the group's operating. All they care about is if people are sponsored. You know, they have their own wonderful set of values. They haven't dug deep in here, some of them, the way we have to. Some of them, maybe they didn't have to do it the way I did it. And I realized the arrogance in me bringing a note to an old-timer, the fact that, you know, they're not doing obviously not doing the 11th tradition. Bill Wilson wrote the 12 and 12, 13 years after he'd written the big book. And the reason he wrote it was because Alcoholics Anonymous was falling apart after the big book as well was written, because there was a lot of things in there that weren't being done, weren't being paid attention to, and a lot of the steps were just, people weren't just kind of glancing over them. And he realized too that he was in a depression, and he had been in a depression for quite a few years. And he had been in a depression because he wasn't really paying attention to all the steps, particularly this 11th step here, and steps 6 and 7. Those were kind of Bill's bugaboo steps that he hadn't been paying attention to. We are, you know, some people say that this would be great for everybody. Well, you know, like Bob, I went back into my Catholic religion for a while. And the reason I got back into my Catholic religion is I had gone back to Jamaica for 2 years in sobriety. And I was very active in AA. And one morning, I hadn't had time to do my meditations at home. So I leave and I start driving to the work I was doing in Jamaica, and I pass by I'm in Montego Bay, and I'm passing by the ocean. And it is beautiful. And on the left hand is the ocean, and on the right side are all these deep, dense, gorgeous foliage that is Jamaica. And the sun is shining. And I'm driving, I'm saying, God, look, you've brought me back to the island. My sponsor told me to go back to Jamaica and make amends to the island. I'm back in Jamaica and the island. I've made amends to people. It doesn't matter to me. I don't have all the money I used to have. It doesn't matter to all these people. I am so grateful to you, God, for the joy I've had. I've been able to get my sons off to where they want to go right now. You know, it's just beautiful. And suddenly I hear, bang! And I see a face at my windscreen, and then it falls off the front of my car. And it's a tourist on a motorbike from New York. He's driving on the wrong side of the road. Because in Jamaica, like Britain, they drive on the left side of the road. And I was so busy talking to God, I didn't see him. And the police in Jamaica are a wee bit different. And they know me by name. And I'm back in the island making amends. And so all the countrywomen were there, and they're saying, it wasn't your fault, Mom. It wasn't your fault, because they all know me too. And the police came, and they took the poor fellow to the hospital. He had to have the inside of his mouth stitched. These are all the steps in one day I'm getting right here, you know. And they took me to, they said the chief inspector wanted to interview me. And I knew him, Mr. Russell, and he said to me, he sat me down across from him. He said, no, you know, I've got your accident report here, the accident report, but there's a few questions I want to ask you, Mary. He said, what were you doing when this happened? He said, this is a tourist island and we have to watch out because sometimes we have to be extra vigilant. He said, what were you doing at the time of this accident occurrence? I said, I was talking to God, sir. He said, you were talking to God? I said, yeah, I was talking to God and I wasn't paying attention. I was looking at the ocean, and he leaned over the desk and he took my hand. He said, can I ask you to talk to God before you hit the road? Which is what the book tells me to do anyway. And they took me to the hospital, because that's what they did, and to see the fellow, and so I could arrange to whatever way I could, you know, and he was very gracious with me. And so I will tell you that I certainly was agitated over over all of it. And, you know, it says in here in the 11th step that we have to pause when agitated, you know, and just do a little review. And after all of that, I was very shaken, and I went home. And I sat down, and I got ready to go out, and I went out again. And I was just grateful I hadn't killed that fellow, you know. So, you know, like that chief inspector told me, I got to do it before I hit the road. And I think that is a great dictum for all of us before we go out in there, because we don't handle the world the way other people do. We just don't. Normal people don't have to do what we do. You know, some of us are just a little bit more full of angst and anxiety, and situations that used to baffle us, they no longer baffle us if we're in fit spiritual condition and we can handle them. So what are we going to do now, Bob?
Let's take about an 8-minute break. We'll come back and do the last session on step 12.